So this is some information about the Global Journalism Internships. We have some people here who went out last year and some who are, I guess, are interested in going next year. So I'm Alan Thompson. I'm a professor here and I run this program. So tonight, ask questions as you go, and I'll talk about these internships. The Center for Media and Transitional Societies was created some years ago. It was kind of a legacy of a previous project and is technically the organization that runs the internships, but it's also essentially me in my office and our partner, Farm Radio, and Blair Evans, who's tonight from Farm Radio. So we'll go through how this is going to work this year, what countries we're going to be operating in, and then answer any questions that you might have, and we'll hear from some interns who were out last year. This program has been operating for 20 years now. This is the 20th year of sending interns to the Global South. It started in Rwanda initially. We had a dedicated project partnership with the School of Journalism in Rwanda, and then interns joined in essentially along with that. Over the years, there have been various partners. One of them was World University Services Canada. Farm Radio has been involved almost from the very beginning in terms of partnering on internships. And the last few years, the placements have been exclusively with Farm Radio because they have a program that's funded by Global Affairs Canada that had our internships built into it. So this year, and it sort of changes every year, this year, there are going to be placements in 3 countries. These are typically, we say 3 to 4 month placements because we want you to go for 12 weeks. Sometimes people find they are able to stay longer, or the hosts are able to keep them longer or want them longer. So we keep it sort of flexible that way. The bottom line is you get $4,000 in funding from Carleton in the form of essentially a travel award. But you give that travel award to Farm Radio. They then book your flights, arrange your housing, conduct your pre-departure orientation, arrange for visas, reimburse for inoculations, malaria meds if they are needed, and arrange for housing on the ground and also provide you with a stipend. So trust me, you're getting vastly more than the $4,000 that you have contributed via Carleton, maybe double that. So we're looking for our top students, which is why we'll ultimately ask you for references from your Carleton profs. Students in BMPD and comms are eligible to do these internships. We just have to make sure that they have the kind of production skills that journalism students typically will have by the time they're in upper years of the program. So this year's internships are with Farm Radio in Ethiopia, which is a new country of focus for us, Ghana and Uganda. And I'm going to ask Blair to speak to the overall logistics of the internships, and I'll just let you push the forward arrow for your slides.
Let yours get on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, everybody. So my name is Blair Emia. I'm with Farm Radio International. I've been with Farm Radio now for going almost 4 years. I'm filling in as communications manager this year because our usual communications manager, Tara, who took this program many years ago, I shouldn't do that, not that many years ago, she's on mat leave. So that's why I'm here this evening. My background is actually in radio. I spent 12 years working in radio broadcasting across Canada. And then when I left radio several years ago, I became a marketing consultant and did a few other things. But what happened was I saw this opportunity with Farm Radio International, and it was kind of like my 2 worlds colliding, where it was a bit of marketing, obviously a focus on radio. And so that's what brought me to Farm Radio International. So we'll talk a little bit about the project as we mentioned. So this is part of our nature-based solutions project funded by Global Affairs Canada. This will be, I think we're recruiting for what will likely be maybe the last group that we do this part with, unless something changes and the new funding arrives. But the idea is we are sharing stories with Canadians about nature-based solutions that are being used in African communities, sub-Saharan African communities, and the impact they're having on their communities, and how Canadians can learn from those nature-based solutions. So oftentimes, as we discuss these things, we're starting to see extreme weather patterns in Canada here in the last handful of years. We have a new weather season called fire season that 20 years ago didn't exist, but now it's become a normal thing. And so we're starting to see these extreme weather patterns. Well, in a lot of the communities that we work in, these weather patterns have been extreme for 15, 20 years. So they have a bit of an unfortunate head start on us when it comes to learning about these extreme weather patterns. And so we're trying to take some of the lessons from some of these rural communities and applying them to how Canadians can learn more. So what this means is we've been putting together a podcast. We're actually putting out season 3 in the next couple of weeks. But this is where you come in. We have country offices in all 3 of the locations that we outlined: Uganda, Ethiopia, and Ghana. Some incredibly dynamic teams in those offices, and you'll be working closely with them in various community visits to go meet these people that are implementing these nature-based solutions. Part of it is obviously really great storytelling. That's a big piece of it. One of the things that we continue to do with each year is continuing an effort to kind of, we look at it as decolonizing our work. So it's not about folks from North America going over to Africa and teaching people how to do different things. What can we learn? How can we tell these stories? And I think that when you leave here this evening, my hope is that you take a listen to a couple of the episodes that we already put out in the last few years. I'll point you to a couple before I'm done this evening to give you an idea of what to expect. But the thing that inspires me about them is it's almost always a quote unquote everyday individual that's doing something extraordinary for their community. And there is a knowledge around or a belief around taking care of the community, not just oneself. And that, for me, is what shines through in a lot of the episodes we do with this podcast. And so that's what we would be looking to for your help with, is going to these places. We will give you the appropriate amount of training to be able to do all of these things and to integrate with the teams in some of these locations. You will be going, producing these episodes. You'll be working closely with the country offices, and you'll hear from some of your peers today on how some of that work. And like I said, we've been working with our country office teams, and they're incredible people, and building these out. So, it will seem a little daunting at first, but we have a whole process in place to help get you to that story. And a lot of our country offices already have relationships with some of the communities that you'll be visiting, with some of the people you might be interviewing to tell the stories of. And so that will be a big part of it. And it's not, part of it is storytelling for the podcast episodes and telling these incredible stories about these individuals and these communities. Another part of it is being able to report back, take pictures, take video that then sheds light on the story that we will be telling in the podcast episode. Because for us, it's not necessarily just the podcast episode. We also promote it on social media. We promote it in our blog, and we tell these stories throughout the year. One example I can give is that last year for Earth Day, we did a report on 7 things Canadians can learn from rural Africans on Earth Day. And so we took a lot of the elements from, or the stories from our podcast and built them into a blog. And again, that's, kind of flipping the typical narrative on the head of, here, let's go over to Africa and teach or explain how we do things. That's not what we're trying to do. It's just telling these stories, reporting on these stories and telling them with dignity. Are there any questions so far on anything I've touched on? So as I mentioned, you'll be going to these offices. We'll work together to develop storylines and angles, and then you'll be visiting these communities with your recorder and interviewing folks and telling some really beautiful stories. And then we work to turn that into a podcast episode. So we have a host for the podcast. Her name is Ivy Prosper. She's based in Ghana. She was born in Ghana, moved to the United States, moved to Canada, still has family here in Canada, and then moved back to Ghana in 2016. She's been our host now for several years, and she's incredible. And then we're also now working with an editor as well. There's a QR code there to access some of the podcast. What I will say is that if you take a listen to some of the episodes, maybe one from last season, and I believe it's season 2, episode 10. The gentleman's name is Cornwell. And he has an incredible story. This man has spent his entire life serving his community in various ways, from being somebody who supports youth to now doing these nature-based solutions for his community. He's been a counselor. He's essentially spent his entire life, and he's got some really great quotes that I wish I could share more broadly with the entire nation, because I think they're really applicable to things as they pertain to today. But that's an episode that I would tell you to check out first and foremost. But there's a lot of great ones that are available on all platforms and on YouTube as well. A little bit about what your day-to-day looks like. And again, I'll have your peers talk a little bit more about this as they have a better idea. I visited our office in Uganda last fall, and it was, an incredible experience to both see how the team works there, and also, I was able to spend some time with some of the farmers that we've impacted with our programming, some of the broadcasters that we work with. And it's a truly incredible experience, to say the least. Outside of doing the work, I specifically remember there was one evening out with my colleagues from the office there, and if I'm the day I'm lying on my deathbed and I think of the top 5 nights of my life, it would be this night will come to mind, because we were just at this random little place, and a sing-along broke out, and there was a whole bar full of people singing "One Love" by Bob Marley, and it was pretty remarkable. So it's an incredible experience to see new culture, new experiences this way. I am not one who's traveled a whole heck of a lot except for throughout Canada. So that was my first time in the continent, and it was pretty special. So like I said, you'll be working in office. Our Ghana office is probably one of our biggest country offices. Uganda is fairly big as well. And then the Ethiopia team is very excited to start this process as well. We've never, as Alan mentioned, we've never told stories from Ethiopia, so that was part of the reason we wanted to incorporate that office this year. There's finally a bit of capacity to be able to do so, and so I think that that's going to be a fun and interesting experience as well. So you'll work closely with the country office teams. You'll plan these field trips to various communities where you'll meet interested people. Oftentimes they will welcome you with open arms and have a lot of great stories and potentially great meals to share with you as well. And so you'll be able to do that. You'll be expected to find, like I said, we'll work together, find the angle, tell the story. You'll want to take lots of pictures, take video, and we will train you on what kind of is expected with those things as well. There is a level of, some creative freedom too when it comes to, there are things outside of the podcast that you might want to dabble in, and we'll speak to that as well once you make it to some of these offices. You'll be in charge of writing your own script, which can be a daunting task at times, but it's a great process. And then we take the scripts, we make some slight edits with you, and then we send them off to Ivy to voice. So typically what will happen is if you're there for the summer months, for example, your peers here, they were in various locations last summer. Their episodes will start being released at the end of this month if all goes according to plan, or early March. So that's kind of the cadence of how it goes. It's you do all this heavy lifting, and then there's a little bit of back and forth when you get home to make sure we've got the scripts, we've got the credits, we've got all that sort of thing. And then we take it over from there on our, and then we obviously keep everybody in the loop on when their episode will be released and all of those types of things. We handle all the editing and production on our side. We have a very simple kind of naming convention for files and scripts and things like that, which will train everybody on as well. And then there's other times where some of our offices may not have the capacity. A lot of our offices want to do a lot more on social, and they may not have the full capacity to do so because everybody's busy doing other things. So sometimes what they'll ask the volunteers to do is help out with that as well. So there's some opportunities there. So that's a big part of kind of the day-to-day aspect of it. As we mentioned, 9 positions this year, 3 different locations. You take care of making sure your flights are booked. We'll help you move through the process of getting various vaccinations required to go to different countries. As we mentioned, malaria medication, things of that nature. We'll do a training in our Ottawa office that gets you fully prepared, understanding what's expected, what to expect when you get there. We'll go through some cultural training as well. Some folks will find it to be a bit of a culture shock at times, so we walk through that process a little bit. I would say from my experience, I don't know if culture shock is the right word, other than it was like a very exciting experience again, because I've never left North America before. So that was kind of what my experience was. The other thing I'll say too, real quickly about vaccinations and things like that. I was kind of added to a trip to Uganda last minute, so I had 2 weeks to plan for it. And so I went and saw a travel doctor, and that experience can be a little bit daunting because the travel doctor will prepare you for all of the possible outcomes and why people with the various vaccinations. And it can feel like very scary. But I will tell you, as soon as I stepped foot there, none of that really crossed my mind. There's lots of conversation when I was, getting malaria medication and talking about how to avoid these types of things. And there was never a point during my visit where I ever felt unsafe or uneasy or anything like that. Especially we have such great staff that will do their best to take you around to the various places. But there are a handful of vaccinations and whatnot that you have to go through, and it sounds like a lot, but it's not as bad as it seems. And again, you'll do the application process through the school here. If you get selected for the interview process, it's a little bit interesting because it'll be myself, it'll be Charles, who's kind of the head of our nature-based solutions project, and then it'll be the country office manager or rep as well. So what that typically means is, given the time zone time difference, a lot of those meetings and interview processes will happen earlier in the morning, just because of the time zone. So we'll get that part set up and we'll work with everybody's schedule once we get to that part. But yeah, it's a very exciting process, and I think it's one where we had Tara, for example. She did an internship with Farm Radio International, and fast forward 7, 8, 9, 10 years, she's our communications manager. So she was sitting in a very similar seat as you're all in, and it took her down this direction. So the reason we reach out to you all is because we want to tell these stories with a bit of a journalistic lens, right? It's not about sensationalizing anything. We want to tell the stories with dignity, but that's the reason why we're with you all. Any questions on anything that we've covered so far? My email address is there. If anything comes up, Alan can also share that with you if you're this evening and think, oh, I wish I would ask that or this. Alan can give you my email address and I'll be happy to work with you. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
So let's hear from some interns. We basically got at least one person who was in every country that held an internship last year, but also Jonah, who went to Ghana 2 years ago, agreed to drive through the storm to down here since we didn't have anyone to present in Ghana. Ghana is one of the countries this year. So I just kind of randomly plug these in. So do you
I went with Alex here. So we were in Ivory Coast. Alex couldn't make it today. But yeah. So I'll be talking a little bit about Ivory Coast. Yes. I guess my first and best advice for all of you is to just like try to be friendly and open to interacting with the country office staff. So those are like that's our whole group that we had, and then you'll see Audrey, who is we went to a community where we were doing like some culture kind of like agriculture, and we were just being silly, and so kind of like right off the bat it was never like too serious. It was just like they were so long and so kind. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about those photos. So the food is amazing. It's like not exactly a culture shock as Blair said, but it's more like, oh, you're very curious about it and want to know. And we are very generous. That's in terms of field work, we go and visit like a bunch of communities. We visited 3 communities, and we went to those same 3 communities 2 times. I'm glad we did. I don't know if that's the case for every office, but it was really nice to have that opportunity, because the first time that we went, I felt like I recorded a bunch of things, but then I was like, oh, I missed this, but then we had an opportunity to go back and do it again. I would say the biggest thing is to not forget to like have natural sounds there, because you'll need it as a sound guide and also as a picture the sounds. During interviews, I found that because Ivory Coast was in French, and it's not like my first language, it was very like I had to practice like active listening, and obviously like save them for English, but I would say do your research in advance and be curious, and don't like be afraid to ask all the questions, because there are different like cultural nuances that I was not probably aware of. So asking the questions is like don't be afraid. And then drink water.
That was a pig thing.
Yeah.
That nose poking through.
Oh, yeah, it's so sad I didn't know that.
And just to Abby's point though, that she brings up a great point. There's never going to be a time where we'll say, oh, you got way too many ambient sounds.
Yeah.
The more the merrier. It definitely helps it tells the story a lot better.
Yeah. No, yeah, we visited a big farm and compost stuff. And yeah, and the other thing is like when you visit communities, just try to think of what's the most interesting like story you can find in there, because obviously this is not like the first time stories, and stories on like composting have already been done before. So try to ask questions and like keep an eye for finding interesting things. The story that I ended up doing was so there's this gentleman who was living with his family and dug an irrigation well. So they've been struggling with drought for many years, but they manually dug everything like this, right? But they dug like and they ended up having back, and after that year they just had water all of circulating, and so they didn't have that same problem anymore, and so that's like a nature-based to address some of the struggles that they were facing that this yeah, so I guess we do a lot of traveling. So we went, as I said, to different communities. And you do a lot, like the days that you travel are really long and it can be very intense. So I'd say just like rest, like mentally prepare, because from morning to night, you'll just be talking to a bunch of people. Like you'll talk in communities, but you'll also talk like to go to offices and talk to like water and forest ministers or things like that. And those are interesting perspectives to add in the episodes, but I'd say the most interesting has been mentioned this time to have like everyday people talking about like what they're doing. But I find that that's like more compelling than just like, oh, this is what we doing at the government level. Yeah, Blair talked about the side.
One of the things too, Abby, if I can, about Abby's episode that's really interesting, is it's not, her episode's not just about people digging wells and irrigation. She does a great job at explaining how it was, at first, people in the community thought this person was a little bit crazy for wanting to do this. And so there's always a little bit of conflict that the person runs into. So that's part of the story arc that we like to tell, is that it's not just something that comes easy to folks. There could be pushback from other parts of the community. And Abby and her, part of, I just read the script the other day. Part of what makes it great is the person that the story is about faces that pushback from the community, makes the tough decision to, you know what, I'm going to be a leader in this and do it. And now almost the entire community is following that person's lead. So, you know, I think that that's part of the story arc that we like to tell as well.
Adam Noah's Ark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So while you're there, if you happen to be bored, which I'm sure you won't be, then it's the opportunity to do them. So if your connection to students or anything, it was really cool. The first story that I did, that I realized was like, it came out of a conversation I had at a conference, and it was just someone telling me that like elephants are like destroying all the cocoa, and it's like 20 ton last year that we destroyed. And then I was like, what are you doing to solve it? Like, that could be interesting story. So feel free to pitch to publications once in there, because I think most publications.
And I'm happy to help with that too. If you find you're out somewhere.
Yeah.
And you just have to navigate it with farm radio, that you're getting your work done, and sometimes there could be a story that could cause conflict or the project that you're involved with, but generally you just figure it out. And awesome.
And the other great thing is, like, this type of stuff, we also love putting on our blog as well as to share.
And we also did have the blog. How do I explain it? Take a blog.
I have slides about it.
Okay, okay,
Perfect.
I'll leave it like that. But, do you have any questions?
Questions for that?
What did you find to be like the hardest part, maybe specifically about like Cote d'Ivoire and different from like Ghana or what the others were saying?
I'd say I'd say definitely language. I went to like fully bilingual school, so I knew how to speak in like French, but after like uni in English, then having it lost. So I found that the first month or so getting adapted was kind of hard, and like interviewing people in French and like talking to people, that was like the challenge. But you pick it up easily if you know the language. And the other thing was obviously like being away from home, like for like 3-4 months. It's not easy in the sense that it's such a new environment that you don't have the same support system and go out for like drinks with friends if you're bored or anything like that. So I'd say to deal with that, contact with your family and friends, just call them if you need to talk. But I think that it's definitely like cliche but life-changing experience, because you learn so much about yourself. And you get to meet something that yeah, I think it's
Hi, everyone. I've probably met a good number of you already. I'm Jonah, for those of you who I haven't met. I apologize if I'm a little bit overdressed. I also apologize if I'm a little bit sluggish in my presentation skills. I was covering a conference all day today, so that's going to be on both counts. But yes, I was in Ghana 2 years ago, so I'm a little bit the old guard on this. But I was with two others who unfortunately couldn't make it right now, so I'm hoping I can remember most of the details. But that, for anyone who's curious, by the way, that's on the screen, you from the balcony of the apartment we were standing in. That just gives you a little bit of a sense of what you're getting sort of on a day-to-day basis when you up. So just to begin with, this is, and once again, I apologize because I think we did the same presentation last year. Justin took one slide and Tamara took one slide. I forget which one was one. So I'm winging it a little bit, but this was the office we worked with, and which were co-workers. It is a very big office. Like we were mentioning earlier, in our case, we were sort of subdivided into three. There were three different desks essentially. There was radio affairs and communications. I think PR might have been the third one. Am I getting that right? Yeah. And so we each kind of worked with one individually. And this is going to be the bulk of where you're spending your time. Not to take the fun out of any of this, because obviously it's an incredibly fun experience, but I do think it's a good reminder that while you're there, you are going to be working sort of a 9 to 5 to 4 or whatever it was in that case. So throughout the week, that's what most of your days are going to look like, is you'll be showing up. But the apartment that you saw earlier was just about a 10-15 minute walk down the street, sort of a walk to work. There was also a lot of street food nearby. So I think Justin and I, literally every day we were there, we went and got food from some of the vendors that folks from the office showed us. There's like that plate in the top left-hand corner, I think equivalent to like $1.50 or something. So it's something you can definitely take advantage of while you're there. But yeah, that'll be your day to day in one of the three offices. Depending on which one you pick, you may be able to help with sort of other day-to-day tasks within the Farm Radio office, aside from the podcast. But as for the podcast, worked a little bit differently for us than it did for what Abby was just describing, because in our case, we did a fair bit of planning and then did one really long, I think it was about a week and a half long road trip, where we essentially covered the whole country, where each of us were sort of in different regions. I was in the east, and then Justin and Cameron were. So there was one day that I think was 17 hours of driving. So that's just something you might want to prepare yourself. It's very bumpy, but it's something that was yes, these are these episodes you actually can go and listen to if you want. Spotify/Farm Radio made your answers, because it's been 2 years ago for us. But the way we did it was we all went together on the trip. I know it's been different in some of the other countries, and we sort of arranged it so that we obviously we each had our own story, but then we would delegate everything else. So you can see each of one of us in our own stories there, where we wrote the scripts and wrote the interview questions. And then we would kind of ask the other two to like just run points and go and get some wild sound and find out a little bit more, just for some background information if you can. Oh, and the thing I was going to mention, right, is that, so this, I don't know if they're still doing it with the design workshop in Kumasi, but when we were there, the second week we were there, went to a different city, Kumasi, where we went to this design workshop at a hotel, which was with a bunch of the partner radio stations from Farm Radio. And we got to hear all of their pitches about their stories about what they were doing in their communities and what nature-based solutions they were hearing about. And then we were able to sort of connect with them and decide which one of those we wanted to work with. So it was great, just as sort of a kickstart for this idea. And yeah, so we, as I mentioned, for us, it was very condensed. We did sort of one very, very long trip. And then we also, the three of us, did a trip on our own, the other side to Cape Coast, where there's a lot of history. I'd recommend that if you're going to be there. But yeah, as I mentioned, it's your day to day is going to be a 9 to 5, but there's a ton of really fun stuff as well. These were just some of our favorite memories that we threw in. A lot of this is what you'll be doing again while you're on the road, while you're doing sorts of activities. I would certainly recommend, as we did, if you know you're going to be on the road, feel free to just look into what's going to be in the area, especially if it's just something like a natural feature, like a waterfall or something like that. There's nothing wrong with just pitching to whoever's going to be with you and driving in a polite way, just saying like, hey, we heard that there's this waterfall or this covered bridge or this monkey sanctuary, which is a real thing that is pretty close to where we're going to be staying. So I have one more. Oh yeah, and this was just each of us picked these, but these are some of our favorite moments, just to give a sense of some of the kind of things that you could be doing while you're there.
any of you are soccer fans, that was actually a World Cup qualifying game that we went to in Kumasi, which was amazing. They came back from like a 3-0 deficit. So, yeah, it was fantastic. Lots of wildlife. There were really, really nice national parks in Ghana as well. But bottom right there, someone that was Randy from our office, great guy. He took us hiking. He's a lovely, lovely guy. He would take you, I'm sure, on that exact same hike. That was to Oya Rifa, I think it was, which was the sort of the top of the hill in the north of Accra, which is where you stay and see the whole city from there. Crocodile sanctuary. You can see those crocodiles were for the most part perfectly harmless, but you can see my reaction early on in the background there being deathly terrified. Okay. Yeah, so I think that was everything for that main sort of the core of what we did. I just added this recently to jog my memory a little bit for a few things that I think you should know if you're thinking of applying to Ghana. Abby touched on this a little bit as well, but it's something I wish I knew a little bit more going in, was that you're not going to be completely at loose ends, but if you ever are, it's not a bad idea to have something in mind of a story you might want to freelance when you get back to Canada. Mine, while I was there, the one that I ran into was there was one time we were taking a taxi through the city of Accra, and I noticed there was a sign for a second cup, like the coffee chain, and had the little maple leaf on it and everything. There's that's really, there's something up with that. So I went there after work and I took a bunch of notes and I took photos and I got in touch with the company. And then when I got back home, I pitched it to a magazine and I was able to freelance it. So it was great to be able to do that. I wish I could have done a little bit more. So that's one of my main pieces of advice. And consider side projects as well. There will be opportunities within office, but it's not such a bad idea, especially if you read up on sort of what kinds of work. I know you talked about it a little bit before, but anything from like promotional material and posters and things like that that you may be able to work on while you're there, just especially in those weeks before you started on the podcast. And things to keep in mind if you're interested in going, absolutely do it. If you're a foodie, if you're really interested in cuisine, especially where you're working, it is somewhat off the beaten path of the city of Accra. So there's some really, really great street food that you'll be able to try there. If you like beans and like rice, fantastic. I miss it so much. You can't get it anywhere in Canada for whatever reason. Nature and hiking, as I mentioned before. Also history in Accra, and then also right along the coast, especially if you know anything about Ghana and that region, it's very, very important for trade. Was essentially ground zero for the transatlantic slave trade, which is very heralding to a lot of sites that it's in the bottom right. It's a city castle in Accra. So it's quite troubling, but there's a lot of history in that region. And the line you may have heard is that Ghana is sort of considered like Africa for beginners. It's one of the first destinations a lot of people who are interested in visiting Africa go to. I didn't, having only been to the one country, I think I can attest to that it was always very safe. It was easy to get around. Everyone there was super friendly, and on same things you're hearing from everyone. And yeah, just finally get to know the other applicants, especially if and when you have applied and you've received your confirmations. Really get to know the other people. I did not know Justin or Tamara at all before we were in Ghana, but we were pretty much inseparable by the time we were there. And I think that was one of the best parts of the experience for me, was just that I had these people I was familiar with who I could pretty much count on for everything. Each one of us got horrifically sick at some point during that time. And just knowing that someone was there to back us up and take us any of the materials that we needed. And then just finally, please do get in touch if this is something you're interested in. Genuinely, like, take a photo of that. Alan can pass along my contact information. When I went, one of the first things I did was I got in touch with Manuel, who's the guy who went the year before me. That was probably the most valuable thing I did. President Lava as well was a great resource, but just actually speaking to people, you're going to hear a ton of advice about how you can really lean into your fears and how this is an unforgettable experience. But there's also going to reach a point where you're going to have questions about, like, how do I get my visa? Where do I go find a travel doctor? That's going to be a whole lot more prescient. So yeah, plus you guys are all journalists. You know that the thing we enjoy talking about more so than anything else is our work, what we've done, and where we've been, so you need opportunity. So genuinely reach out if you want to. And I think that was everything.
Professor Manaba is going to be in Ghana sometime June,
So for all of July, I will be there. It will be very nice to sit and actually listen to you.
Absolutely.
I'll be there with my family, but I will be just because I'm very, very interested.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. One of the things I'll quickly mention too is seeing Jonah's pictures reminded me of this. Is one of the things that's really changed since Jonah was in Ghana is that we actually launched a new department of Farm Radio International that will eventually be its own entity. It's called Just Communication. It's an African-led organization. So when I talk about our work and decolonizing our work, this is one of those elements. So this is launched. A big part of that is taking place in the Ghana office as we speak. So there's been some shuffling there. So when Jonah mentions there's some extracurricular things you can get your hands into, there will be a lot, especially in Ghana, but it's something that's happening across all of our country offices. It's being led by my colleagues across the continent. We are helping in a bit of a supporting role, and as it stands right now, it's a Department of Farm Radio International with the plan within the next 2 years for it to be its own separate NGO, and hopefully they still want to partner with us when that day comes.
Yeah, it's weird, but I think like there's some good stuff that we figured out along the way that I think you guys should know. So in Zambia, we lived and worked in the capital, Lusaka. One of the main things that I would suggest is when you get your groceries, get multiple cases of water at a time. There's nothing worse than like you're cooking or you're just parched in the middle of the night. Like there's nothing but orange fizzy pop, and I don't want that right now. So yeah, do that. Misa very fortunately provided us with a driver basically the entire time if we wanted to go any further than that. So around Lusaka, we went places like the official Florence Village and the National Museum of Zambia, which were two highlights of the trip for me. I think also in that sense, do your research of your country, not just to get like the history and the information, but to know what you want to see, because then you can hopefully get in contact with your office and they can set that up for you ahead of time, as opposed to like, oh, I missed that, or oh, can we like make a stop here, please? By the way, like out of the blue, because this wasn't too far out of the way, but it was very like they appreciated us being considerate of their scheduling and also their driver's time, like he's taking his day off and stuff like that. So that was the main thing. Our work day was from 8 to 5, so pretty much every day that's what we were doing. Before we went on our reporting trips, though, you don't have a lot of work to do. At least we didn't, apart from like researching the assignments. So our office, and I'm sure your office will take you to workshops, press briefings, conferences. This one up here, kind of in the top left, was actually, it was a press conference for the media awards they held in the backyard of the MISA office, which was really cool to be a part of. They had a lot of multi-day workshops because we were in partnership with the Media Institute of Southern Africa, of course, and they have radio offices all around, and they run workshops for their journalists to teach them how to be good journalists, which was really fun to be a part of. They really wanted your expertise and not your opinion. One note on that, in like the sense of like you, like when you go, sometimes it is like it's lovely to be able to share your experiences and stuff with you know, but it's also very important to know when to take a step back, just not just be a shadow in the room. We have some funny, I have a funny anecdote of like some of these conferences when like people would, they'd be talking or whatever, they'd be doing a briefing for a day on biases in reporting. And we would just be sitting in our work and conversations would come up about like, well, you know how like it's a bias that women don't stop talking. And everyone around the room was just like, yeah, they don't. Like, and we were just kind of like, oh, okay, cool. That's what we're and whatever. But yeah, so that was fun. But the US aid office actually closed while we were in Zambia. So one of the things that we did is Misa Zambia got donated a lot of the brand new, nice office equipment that the aid office had to get rid of. But when we were doing it, it was a really like strange situation because it was so somber. Everybody was kind of asking all of my colleagues, like, do you know any jobs? And we were just kind of like helping them clean out all these brand new fancy printers. So that was, I wish Caleb was here. He took like extensive journal notes on that day, but it was just something that like, you know, you had to wrap your head around, try not to focus too much on it. But on a lighter note, this picture, I wish it wasn't so dark. That's how I wish you could see. That's how they piled in, like, it was like a $4,000 printer. Just like in the back, they just went, like threw it in, and this is like chairs and a desk, and they drove with the bed flap down like that. I had to take a picture of it. Because it was awesome. Oh. Well, that's. Oh, sorry. I'll just do that. So life in Zambia. Zambia is home to obviously Victoria Falls, one of the largest waterfalls in the world. So we were lucky enough to hike that on one of our days off. Another day off, we got to do a safari, which I would definitely recommend. And then we went bungee jumping, and Raquel and I did the swing and faced death. It was in this photo actually. I screamed. I wish I had the video. I screamed the entire way down, flung up, like crossed in front of Raquel, and then one of the ropes that they tied us to wasn't attached, so it was wrapped around my neck because like they have all the ropes to like make sure they don't get tangled, and they forgot to unwrap it. So when we fell, it like hit, like whipped off my neck, slapped her in the face. So I'm like, yay! She's sobbing that picture. And then in the top corner, most of our days actually were just kind of spent watching like Love Island on days off. I binged a whole series of that. That's also taken because we got deathly sick. All of us. I'll spare you the details, but it was not the common cold. So bring the meds and a lot of them that your doctors prescribe you. Food is absolutely incredible. All the meat is like ridiculously cheap. So absolutely, like we were getting steak, prawns, fish every single night, just massive platters of it. And it was so cheap. And we would order like a big like platter for the table. And then our servers would be like giggling at us as we ordered because it was so much food. I think I ordered like a side mac and cheese with my steak and white gravy sauce like this big, and they were laughing, and then the mac and cheese came out and it was not a side mac and cheese, it was a full size mac and cheese, but they were laughing at us, whatever. But nightlife in Zambia is really fun. If you get the opportunity, I would recommend going out. We only went out with our partners, like with the office. They took us out, they drove us out. They what is it, sober savior or whatever, what's it called? Like, designated driver. Sorry, sober savior. They would do that. And we would go out. I think maybe we went out like once or twice a month, but it was a nice relax. And they really wanted to take us out too. So, but they didn't offer it until we like kind of said like, oh, I would be interested in this. And they were very surprised and very impressed. So if that's something you're interested in, pitch it. They might not know what you're comfortable at, but I think it was worth it because a lot of the food that we got that was the best was like, it was just the middle of like this hotel bar. Yeah, we're just grilling a bunch of steak and yeah, a bunch of beers, and we were like, yep, T-bone time, like just in the middle of the outdoors. So the podcast experience, this is pictures of all of us doing stuff. Our experience was very dynamic. We did not do a lot of researching ahead of time because Misa had kind of like, they were in such like constant contact with the radio stations because they lived in Southern Africa that they already kind of knew where we were going and who we were talking to. Our job was researching and finding a new angle to that story, which I think we all did a very good job of. So we went on multiple road trips, very different from Jonah. We went on, I would say, about a 4-day road trip for 10 to 12 hours, drive back, and then do a bit for a couple of days, and drive back out, do that, and blah, blah, blah. And the roads, yeah, it was like up to 14 hours in the car ride. So bring Bradwell, definitely. My friends got very sick on the road, but it was worth it. So that is Raquel doing her story. So actually that's a tip I have. Both Raquel and I did stories where we had to interview multiple people at a time. Like a big group of like 10 to 12 people, and they were all like raising their hand to answer. So Raquel was running to each person and getting their stuff.
So her Zoom recording was basically just like one big chunk. It was multiple people, so that was extra work. For me, I was sat in a circle. Also fun. So they were all sitting on the ground and they had like, it was like, this is everybody sitting and they had chairs over here for us to sit in. But obviously if you use a microphone and you know radio, I have to get right up in your face. So I walked up and like, I just like plopped like crisscross down in the dirt and they all went absolutely appalled, or just like shocked. And then I got my local Zambian to meet them, which is a biblical name, and they offered me all of their Zambian husbands, which I loved. So yeah, so interviewing all of those people at a time was very, very difficult. And then my translator was also, he was basically just kind of saying like, oh yeah, well, she said kind of this. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, okay. And then like, what did he say? And he'd say, she said the same thing as her. And I'm like, okay, I guess we'll figure this out later. So I ended up getting back to the office. And luckily I was able to get in contact with that translator because again, they speak, or no, I never said that. They speak 72 languages in Zambia. So it was very difficult getting a translator to translate those specific things. Like I couldn't just ask somebody else to do it. Luckily enough, he was at a conference and I was able to meet up with him for a couple of hours after that. And just like, poor guy was like so sick of me. He's like, yeah, he said this. And I'm like, no. I need the, like, use I, me, mine pronouns and whatever. But that's something you might encounter. I did 2 stories. So going off of something that Blair said earlier, one of my stories was about manure, which is not new at all. If any of you garden. So my story ended up like, I was just sitting and having a conversation with Sky, and he was telling us about the new nature-based solution that they're using manure with, which is mixing cow dung with water to make like manure water. Manure tea is what they call it. It was the new thing. But what really struck me in the conversation was that this community, I mean, you'll listen to it, but this community is so like spread out. Imagine this is like a massive community. Like that one house is here, one house is like miles away. Anyways, years ago, their forefathers were sharing the cows because there weren't enough to go around because cows are a very expensive thing to own, to feed, to take care of, etc. So that became packed to doing like that. And it was a way of like mixing traditional methods with new nature-based solutions. So like that's something that I would suggest is like, you know what you're doing, like find the new angle, even if it's not historically new. Like it's a nature-based solutions thing, and I like new nature-based solutions, and I did mine. So you know, you have a lot of options out there. Yeah, a lot of people. Kaylin did his on biochar, which was really, really cool. And Mikkel did hers on school that was teaching nature-based solutions through Christ, which was really cool. So I'm probably forgetting a bunch of stuff, but main tips, yeah, research your country before applying, see as much of it as you possibly can. You can get sick, don't be scared, but it'll be okay. Oh yeah, buy and wear cultural attire. So when we were going up to the communities, we had to wear like wrap skirts or whatever, which I could never figure out how to tie on my own. I always had to have someone else do it. And then the women would always be like coming up to me and like helping me fix it. I'm like, oh, thank you and stuff, which was great. I still have mine hanging. I have mine and Raquel's. So we each got one, or we each got several made, and we swapped at the end. So we each have our tapestries of that, but there's nothing better. I love it so much. Journal as often as you possibly can. I didn't as much. Kaylin and Raquel did. I did the most. And I'm here to tell you a bit more, but it's something that I regret not doing. So that's a tip, and take as many photos as you possibly can. And get to know your fellow interns. Yeah, going off what Jonah said. I think I came into the program not knowing either of these 2 people who came back from my 4th year, and all of my friends that graduated. And now Raquel and Kaylin are 2 of my closest best friends. It's like I couldn't ask for better people. So even though Zambia is not an option for you guys, I hope take something out of that. Sorry.
Yeah.
They're exposed. That's a real nice.
You can.
I wanted to show you a trailer. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, okay. Because I think that kind of encompasses what your summer could be like better than I can explain, or else I would just kind of elaborate and yeah. So that's the more proposed way of saying some of the experiences that maybe you could have or similar experiences. So Victor and I, he's not here, but I guess we're here a little bit. We spent the summer in Uganda, in Kampala, which is the capital. It's a very welcoming office. I think I'd be shocked. I mean, that's what everyone's saying. So I'd be shocked if any of the offices were any different. There's a woman, she's pictured. This is Hanifa. She's the chef in the office as well. And she cooks lunch 3 times a week. So it's a great way to try some different dishes, and it's very cheap. So and it's very sweet. The office will sit together and everyone will chat about their day. So it's a good way to get to know the office. It's a good way to try food, and I would recommend it. There's also a lot of weekly meetings and workshops. And then another part of it is don't be afraid to just explain kind of like if there's anything you're looking for, if there's something you want to try and experience. People know things, people are happy to show you around, and yeah, also if you need help with finding a pharmacy, finding a restaurant, yeah, many people have many tips, so that's just kind of a peek about the office, and I can say a lot more. Oh,
And change them all when I'm trying to then.
okay, that's fine. Cool. So as I said, living in Kampala, it's the capital. So there's a lot of restaurants, a lot of exploring just to be done. And it's very it's all kind of relatively close. So there's grocery stores and markets. Accommodations are covered. We talked about that. My place that Victor and I stayed was, I think, maybe 5 minutes from the office, so walking. So from my experience, Kampala is very walkable. Otherwise, you can see that's Victor and I squeezed on a motorcycle or a boda, and that was our office driver, Sam. So Sam is the driver for Farm Radio. When he's not working with Farm Radio, he gives you his number and everything. He's happy to take you around. Otherwise, there's an app called Safe Boda, similar to Uber, and yeah, it's a pretty easy way to get around the city. English is the first language in Uganda, so most people speak English in the city, but you probably will pick up some Luganda by the end of your trip. Yeah.
The traffic in Kampala is
Oh.
unlike anything I've ever experienced.
Well, I was trying to keep this very
Yeah,
traffic. We can talk about the traffic. Okay.
I have videos of the traffic.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, sometimes there is Uber also in Kampala. I don't recommend it because the traffic is crazy. So when you get on the back of your Boda Boda and you can just whip around all these cars and kind of leave them in the dust, see you later. Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend Ubers. But yeah. Uh, okay. So making the podcast, you kind of heard a little bit about it, but you will make friends with Randy in the ear room and take out some audio kits. I took out a smartphone kit because I want to shoot some video as well. As we saw. You'll spend in Uganda. What Victor and I did was we spent the first 3 or 4 weeks doing some planning and researching. The office also, before you come, will go out and visit the communities that they would like to work with, because they also partner with local broadcasters. So when you go to the community, you'll go with a broadcaster and they'll kind of help you find contacts because they'll have relationships built ahead of time before you get there. In my experience, I worked with a translator because although English is commonly spoken in Kampala, in the villages and some of the smaller cities, it's not as common. So I think I was working in Uganda in, oh, I say this wrong all the time, Ramyankali, I think. And when I got back to the office, I lucked out because I had two translators there who helped me out. So different experience from there, but yeah, once you're back from the field, you will write a script and then you can edit your clips. And for mine, because it was in a different language, I worked with women in the office to record voiceovers and do some translations. Oh yes, these are my tips. So there's lots of food to try. What I would say is be curious. I didn't imagine I would try grasshoppers in my life, but when I was presented with the option to try grasshoppers, I said, yes, of course I will. So these are fried grasshoppers. They were fried for me with a little bit of onion. They weren't bad. They were like a crunchy little snack. So the pork in Uganda, I don't know if you got a chance to try when you were there. Okay, barbecue pork or grilled pork is unbelievable. So and it's cheap, so I recommend trying that. You can message me and I'll tell you the best place to go. Yeah, I think I just wanted to say the food is delicious along with non-picture the tea. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I think one more thing. Oh yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is make the most of it. Which I guess that's a cliche, but yeah, I think there's an option for you to get comfy in your nice apartment that Farm Radio helps set up for you. But there's also a whole country to see. So I mean, it can maybe be daunting. I did a lot of traveling by myself. So if you do want to talk about what that's like, I can give you advice about that. But yeah, I think there's a lot to see and you just got to go ahead and see it. Yes.
Were you that close to a hippo on the ground?
Yeah, I was in yeah, that's not even the best one. I spent a weekend camping in Queen Elizabeth National Park in a tent. And I heard lions outside of my tent. And I woke up at 3 a.m. to a hippo chomping grass behind my head. I peek my head out of my tent. And you're not allowed to go anywhere without like a security guard because there's animals everywhere. And so I said, excuse me, sir, is there a hippo outside of my tent right now? And he looks over and goes, yeah. And okay, can I come out and see? And, yeah, come on. So we're like hippo spawning at 3 a.m. Yeah. You do have to travel quite a bit for that. Queen Elizabeth is like 7 hours of the flight. Yeah. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say, I didn't get sick. Because a lot of I heard that a lot. Last year's intern said that too. That everyone gets sick. You know, I mean, maybe Some people get sick clearly. But I didn't get sick, so I mean, there's.
I also didn't get
Oh,
sick. So,
um,
yes, I was lucky.
yes. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to, it's an option, you might not get sick, so. I think you're proving.
Yes.
You do it?
Hey everyone, it's Victor. I'm in Amman, Jordan right now, and I wanted to talk to you guys about the Farm Radio International Internship this year. I graduated from Carleton last year with the journalism program, and I was selected to do a placement in Uganda last summer. And if you're watching this, you're probably already really interested, but I guess I need to say how awesome it is. And it's super awesome. I think if you're willing to apply, you should. I know, you might have to give up working for a couple months, but believe me, you're not going to regret it. It's interesting work. It's different work than what we've been doing in journalism school. How many universities go out of their way to put you on an internship on a different continent? Really go for it. My experience is really special with my partner, Maddie, for the summer last year. We were based in Kampala. We did our little road trip where we went to the different communities. We did our interviews for the podcast project. Took a lot of photos, met a lot of interesting people, ate a lot of really amazing food. And I guess, I don't know, I love traveling. So that was a pro for me, like getting to meet different people and getting to meet people who might never have met otherwise. So I think if you have even the slightest inclination, I think it's worth it to apply and see if you can get in, because pretty once in a lifetime, I'd say, get to go do this kind of work, especially, it's not exactly journalism, it's with an NGO, but I think that's part of the fun. It's like you're putting those journalism skills to use in a different context, and it's really nice. It looks good on your CV. It's good for your development as a person to go meet people on the other side of the world. I guess I can't really say enough good things about it. So please apply. You never know. You never know if you're going to get it. And if you do, it might be very important professionally, personally, spiritually. My tummy. Really good for my tummy. But
That's funny. No, we would go out to restaurants and he'd sit and the pork, especially, he loved the pork. And like all the time. And we became good friends with a woman from the office. She was like our tag along office. He was very vocal when he eats. Yeah. I realized I didn't say, but does anyone have any questions about Uganda now? Yeah.
All right, I'm wondering, you said it was a 7-hour drive to the national park.
Yeah.
But did you take a boda boda?
No, I didn't take a boat. I took a bus.
Okay.
Yeah, I can also make recommendations of buses. Like everyone else said, please reach out to me. I can't talk enough about Uganda. I love it so dearly, and I have lots to share. And so for all of these people. So yes, please talk to me about it.
I'll run you through just quickly the last few logistics slides. So tomorrow, or certainly by the weekend, the application kit will be up. There'll be a place on the website, the school's website. I'll post a news item that has that link. So just watch for that on the school website. And the applications are due on February 24th. This is last year's slide. So there are 9 placements, not 10. But, and I want to let people know, especially if you're in your graduating year, there's another opportunity, and I'm trying to time it so that people don't have to necessarily choose, do I apply for this or do I apply for that? I'll really encourage people, if you're interested, this CBC North is a 4-month paid internship in Whitehorse. You have to be in your graduating year because they potentially won't keep you at the end. And so I'm making sure that these 2 application processes are running in parallel. And I'm going to try and work it out with Farm Radio and CBC Whitehorse that they make decisions and make offers so that if ever somebody was offered both, they can then decide and not have to choose what do I even apply for. And then we would just go to somebody else on the wait list to fill it. So don't not apply because you think, oh no, I'd rather do CBC or I'd rather do farm radio. You can choose. So the application, I try to keep it really simple. So there's just a straight up fill in the form, a simple 250 word sort of statement of intent. This is who I am and why I think I would be a really great candidate for this. You don't have to have traveled the world before. If you have, you can talk about your experiences or you can talk about what you want to get from this. You will attach your CV so that we can go back and see who you are. If you have an online portfolio, that's a really good thing to link to. I don't encourage people to be like uploading a whole bunch of clippings, and it's much, much easier if your CV has a hyperlink to an online portfolio for people to look at. We do ask you for references. Do not ask people to write letters for you. Because my experience as a professor, A, it's a lot of work. B, they all kind of say the same thing, unless they hate you, which they probably don't. But what I want to hear from these references is this person would be great. I would absolutely send them. This person would likely do really well. I would have no concerns about sending them. I wouldn't send this person to Max Milk to buy me a pack of cigarettes. Like, I want them to tell me honestly, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure they'd be fine. I think I have concerns, and fill in and tell me what those concerns are. So it's a very, very different type of reference. So let them know you want them to be a reference. You're listing them as a reference. They will all have a link to the form that they can fill in. I may not interview everyone, so it depends how many applications we get. I will do, yeah.
We'll go back to the next slide.
Yeah.
And this is just my PSA, is that you always ask a journalism professor before you put their name down.
Yeah, you have to ask, and it is in any case, right?
Yeah,
Would you be my reference?
It can be viewed seen as disrespectful if you just let them know, oh, I put your name down for this thing. A lot of professors really don't.
Yeah.
It's happened to me.
Good point.
Thank you.
So the way it works, these applications all come into the system. They're all assembled. I get them all. I will do a first sort. And in some cases, it's self-evident based on, it's not that you have to be in your fourth year or in the MJ program to go. I try to make sure that people for whom this is the last opportunity to do this get a chance. They tend to have more experience than those who are in third year or second year, but I've had people from second year and third year in the BJ go on these internships. So I encourage everyone to apply. Then I will try to figure out how to process, how to deal with the applications so that I can produce a short list, which I then give to Farm Radio, and they make the final selection. So in the application kit, you'll be asked, what's your first choice? Uganda, Ghana, Ethiopia, first, second, third choice. And you can indicate. It may turn out in the end of this whole process, they don't need you in Uganda. They've got 3 terrific people that they really, really want to send, but they'd love to send you to Ethiopia, right? So it's kind of dynamic in that sense. When you are there, you are an ambassador for Carleton. So you're all good people. We've rarely, if never, had bad experiences with our students being out there in the world. One thing that I always caution people about, I do want you to think about doing journalism outside of your responsibilities with Farm Radio. I just ask people to be cautious in a couple of ways. Farm Radio lives there and works there. The implications of a piece of journalism that you do, while it may well meet our every standard for a fair, objective, well-reported piece of journalism, I'm not asking people to censor themselves, but I'm asking you to be mindful. Could this cause a lot of blowback for this organization, for our hosts, for the people that I'm interviewing? And the other temptation, even though in reporting classes, I tell people, eavesdrop, listen to what people are saying, pick up on things that are happening. With your coworkers, you have to be so careful, right? You can't just turn them into a story or use them in a story or even use them in a blog without making sure it's okay with them for you to use them, even if you don't use their names. Because often we make mistakes, or we don't realize if somebody was joking about their wife around the lunch table, they do not want that showing up in some blog. Something. The other thing, all journalists have this terrible habit of being in a place for 3 weeks and writing about the politics of Ethiopia or about the president of Uganda, who's like old and should have been. I'll stop there. So resist that temptation because you're tourists in a certain sense. You've only been there for a little while. You can absolutely write about the things you observe and actually what surprises you. I'm surprised to see this. And this thing I find very interesting, but beware of big picture political state of the union type journalism, because I don't think people who are there for 2 months are in any position to write stuff like that.
And just on that too, because there are certain topics in certain countries where the laws might be different than here. And if you go down that path too far, you can actually put some of the staff in danger by, diving too quickly into it. It's all part of some of the things we'll talk about in that 3-day orientation and training as well. But I know that in my case, when I went to Kampala, these types of things came up, and there were certain things that was quite clear that we would not necessarily get into great detail with our coworkers, just in an effort to not put them in any type of danger.
Yeah, and there will be things, and this is discussed a lot in the pre-departure orientation. There are things, a lot of people are much more spiritual and organized religion than is the case in Northern. A lot of people go to church and might take offense at stuff that we would sort of joke about. Sexual orientation, they're very different mores, and it's something. So just use your gut instinct, listen a lot, and be careful and ask subtly advice from people you trust about discussions and conversations.
So even on a lighter note with that, we had like conversations with people in our office and stuff. And, like Raquel and I both have cats, and we would show pictures of our cats and would say, do not tell people that you have cats. When you go in communities, don't show pictures of your cats because they're good riches. And he was dead serious. We're like, oh, okay, that's never something that I need to consider. So it's important to keep that in mind.
Yeah. This past year, we encouraged everyone to blog. We ran a blog. Abby was like filling it up the first week, and then others. So again, I really encourage you. It's just a very simple. I was managing it, so I just asked people to send me by email a blog entry and some photos. And we ended up with, I don't know, 20 or so entries. I really, really encourage you to do this. The kind of slice of life sort of stuff, things that surprise you, things that are happening, things that you notice around you. I'm a little cautious around tourism. I don't want people to think we're just there to be tourists. But on the other hand, how would you possibly go somewhere like this for 2 or 3 months and not try to find every opportunity to explore and to take in life and to see things that you're not going to get another chance to see? So I don't discourage people from finding every chance you can get to do tourism. And there will be opportunities to do that. Questions, like some of the obvious ones that come up all the time. How competitive is the application process? It varies from year to year. And I would just say, forget about that. If you want to go, just apply. And talk to me, reach out to people who've been there before. Can you work on other things while you're in the field? Yes. But remember, farm radio is heavily subsidizing your presence there. You are working for them and doing the tasks that they need done. But you don't work around the clock, and typically you're not working weekends, and you will have time to do things. MJ students sometimes wonder, could I do my MRP while I'm in the field? And yes, you can. But again, you have to be careful. You have to manage your time. And it could be close to a conflict to do it on a project of farm radio where you're being paid by farm radio in a sense to be there. So, but it's just a chance of a lifetime to do a project when you're there. The journalism experience, I don't know. Some people, it's like, I'm not sure this was the peak of my journalism capacity or my abilities. but it's also, it's the life experience, right? You're there for the life experience that you can gain from being there. The beauty of our partnership with Farm Radio is there is so much support on the ground. And they have a presence in the places where you are going. So you are totally supported. I have complete trust that Farm Radio is going to take care of. The cost, I've worked really, really hard over the years to make sure, as much as possible, there's no barrier to anyone who wants to do this. Now, you're giving up your chance to make some cash over the summer. You're not going to make money from this unless there's a coup while you're in Uganda and all of a sudden everybody wants you on TV and CNN, and these things happen. And man, oh man, if that happened, like, you're ready. But I don't want anyone to not do this on financial grounds. So the $4,000, you should be covered. If you want to do a lot of tourism, a lot of travel, a lot of shopping, that'll be on you. But you should be able to do this experience without incurring any additional cost other than lost income. Please try to use your Carleton journalism profs as references because they know best your capacity to do this kind of work. And, you know, some people want to use a prof who they really like from a humanities course or from another course. I don't mind that ultimately. I want to make sure I have at least one really good, strong reference from a journalism prof who I know and who I know knows you. If you're in any question about who you can use or should use or could use, don't hesitate to ask. Anything I missed from that, or any other questions you have for the people who've done this? Yeah.
Can I go? I like to apply to go through this.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to be there,
It looks awesome, guys.
no, it is. It's a real chance to do this. So, if you have any interest at all, every now and then I hear from somebody whose parents or families are like, "Oh my God, you're going to send my kid to Canada," and I always just tell them, "Would you be calling me if they were going to Mexico on holiday? No. Do you realize it's vastly more dangerous to go to Mexico than it is to go to any of the places where we're sending interns?" So, but any concerns or any questions you have, don't hesitate to reach out.
One of the things I'll add to just to that, because seeing everybody's pictures with my colleagues up on the screen reminding me of this, is that wherever you go, there is a good chance the people you will meet there will be thrilled to share their culture. So that's a real part of this experience. And we, once a month on Tuesdays, we have what's called our cooking meeting. That's where typically in the past, when we all went to the office, we would sit around, have cookies, and just chat. And now it's turned into, an opportunity to share sometimes we're sharing what we're doing with our work on a weekly basis, but in times where it's around the holidays, typically we'll share like our traditions. And so you'll hear, and that's the part that with my job that I have the most gratitude of, is that it's the work I do, I love, but the people I do it with is what makes it so incredible. And being able to learn from these people, being able to experience culture through these people is such a remarkable experience that I can't say enough about. And it's truly what, I love most about my job is get to experience this through other people's eyes. And it's a really interesting experience that way. And then the last thing I'll just say real quickly too is I'd be remiss if I didn't brag a little bit about audio as a medium, having a radio background. Part of the reason why I do this podcast and why I think audio remains such a popular medium, whether it's podcasting and radio or whatever, is that it forces people when they're actively listening to use their imagination in a way that video just can't. And so when you're telling stories through the power of audio, you get to tap into people's imaginations. So when we joke about getting all kinds of background sound and things of that nature, this is what we're talking about, because people are imagining what this person looks like. What does their face look like? What is their experience like? And you get to tell this story through the power of audio. And to me, audio is extremely powerful. Video is great, print is great, but there's something about so intimate about audio where you're in somebody's ears and you're painting a picture for them. And that's really what this gets to be about.
Yeah.
Look for the small experiences. So if you can find a way to go to see these house, then that's a way of being. And if you can, I mean, it's a bigger one, more time, maybe trips to do a few hours, but you can play. But other things like, what chores are you doing on Saturday? The small things, I think, are something.
It was interesting that Alan brought up the part about church. And I flew in late. I got in overnight on a Saturday. I was woken Sunday morning at like 7 a.m. And I thought it was my alarm going off, but there was actually a church service happening in the hotel, and it was a choir. And it was one of the most peaceful ways for somebody to wake up. And so my very first day in Kampala, I got to experience what spirituality is like there, because in my experience, folks got dressed to the nines, went to church with their family, and then we were in one of the main malls in Kampala that evening. And it's such an incredible experience because, malls here are, kind of quiet. You go there on a Sunday after church and folks are dressed to the nines, they're getting their pictures taken, they're having meals together, and you really see what family and culture means in that context. And it's pretty incredible.
Well, thank you for coming out. I know the weather kept a lot of people away, so I am going to post audio and slides and encourage your friends to apply as well. In Mississippi, okay, thank you.